Okay, Tom Rosano.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the subcommittee meeting of the Industrial Community Development. Myself as the chair, members, Councilor Sharris, Councilor McGinn, Councilor Melville, Councilor O'Neill, and also welcomed in attendance is Councilor Sasslaw, Councilor Turco, Councilor Mitsoulas, Councilor Welton, Councilor Manning, and Councilor Rosano. We called this meeting to ask the mayor requested, to speak with us about city-owned property, and if the mayor is ready, we'd like to turn it over to the mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, councilors. Hope everybody's doing well. I intend to be very brief, but certainly open to any questions. But like we did with the finance meetings regarding the budget, this has certainly been an important topic that I wanted to try to give some updates on, and probably again maybe after the holidays at the appropriate time, just to give some updates on city-owned properties. Two things continue to happen. One is get requests again on a weekly basis, maybe more, on housing in our city development. People want to move to Peabody, looking to build in Peabody, and it's terrific in many regards. So those continue to come in fast and furious. I know a number of you, probably all of you at some point, have been asked about housing in the city of Peabody and what may be available. The second thing that's been happening is another piece of good news, is that our property values continue to go up significantly. As we discussed the other day on Tuesday at our tax classification hearing, our property values over the last 5 years have gone up 30%. This year they went up 4%. Another good piece of news, and again indicative of the fact that Peabody is a desirable community and that we collectively are doing a good job. Certainly things to improve, but overall I think we are doing a good job for our city, and again, people want to be here. People are interested in what we're doing in Peabody. So with that in mind, and certainly very aware of our financial situation, which is very precarious, considering where we are with COVID, the uncertainty into the months ahead, we've been trying to be very creative in trying to look at opportunities to bring in revenue. I think that's important for us as a community. We'll be taking up the budget soon enough, and we want to make sure the services are provided to our residents as best we can. And we have our teachers and police officers, firefighters, all the important departments in our city are at the safest staff levels that we can make them. And that's certainly a priority moving forward. So we've been looking at different sites across the city, large projects, small projects, large lots, small lots that the city owns, just to see what may be available. As I outlined back on September 10th, we've been looking at different properties, asking a surveyor to come in, maybe give us some options. And we've been out looking at different sites. And I did want to mention Kurt Bellavance is on the call as well at the Zoom meeting today, and he's certainly been a part of these discussions and has gone on these site visits. So we've looked at a number of sites. Really the only ones that have moved forward on are really just a couple. The first one, though, is on Bow Street. I think many of you are familiar with Bow Street. Is right off of Herrick. Once you go up Herrick, you take the right onto Bow Street. It's a one-way street. You take the left on Herrick, you would go towards the West School. There was an old PMLP substation that was at the site. And walking over there's some wooded area. There's some weeds. There's been a lot of yard waste that's been dumped there, but it's a very flat location that I think that I thought would be an excellent, some excellent lots to put out that I think could generate some significant money to the city of Peabody. We had a surveyor come in. There's 71,000 square feet of land in that area that is city-owned. It was transferred from PMLP to the city of Peabody in 2007, and we initially looked at just doing two lots, one at 39,000 square feet and the other at 32,000 square feet, total of 71,000 square feet. But we felt that we wanted to have some buffer. After talking to some neighbors, after talking to some of you, we felt that a buffer would be the appropriate thing to do. So a third lot was created where it's lot A and B are two 25,000 square foot lots, and the second is referred to as lot C, which is just going to be a buffer area for the residents on Bradford and on Bow. So we felt that that was important to keep some buffer area as best we can, and we've even talked about the idea of maybe deeding some of that property to those neighbors that may want to extend their property. But we felt that those 2 lots were extremely desirable and fit in with the neighborhood. It's zoned R1. These would be single-family lots, and that's what we move forward with. We hired an auction company, Zakos Group. They're familiar to the city. They do the progeria research auctions that I know many of you have been to and have supported. And they've come in and taken over really the whole operation in terms of handling the auction itself. I had never been involved in an auction. We've always gone the RFP route, request for proposals. There are 2 ways to sell city lots, as you know, an RFP and an auction. As I've learned more about an auction, I thought that that was the appropriate way to go here. An RFP still can be valuable to use depending on the site and what the city's interests are, but an auction we felt was the best road to take, and the advice that I got from others was that an auction could lead to a better sale. So it is on for next Friday at noontime, right at the site. The setup will be starting at 9 o'clock, right in front of the site. We will have a tent there. It is open for bidders to sign up to register at 11. Anybody who bids has to be registered and has to show proof of the ability to pay the deposit, which is $20,000 per lot. We're selling them as 2 individual lots or also as 1 lot. Again, just trying to determine, give ourselves options to see what the best route to take would be. We always have the ability to pull back and not accept if the auction does not perform the way we hope or expect. But we felt that that was the best avenue to take. As mayor, I have that ability. It's under my purview to put out any city property up for sale, but everything would come back to the council to vote to authorize me as mayor to sign the purchase and sale agreement. So again, I propose, give recommendations, and ultimately the city council votes on whether to approve the sale or not. So when we do the auction, it would all be based on subsequent approval by the city council to the purchase and sale terms. So that is on, again, for next Friday, the 18th at noontime, right at Bow Street, that location. We did send out notices to all the neighbors. I myself have spoken to a number of neighbors that I know personally. I did get 3 calls from neighbors in that area who received letters with questions that I was able to answer, and we feel good about moving forward. We've done our due diligence in terms of title rundown, environmental, and in terms of environmental and wetland work in that site. We feel we've done our due diligence and we can move forward feeling very confident that we've met our obligation and can put this forth as a potential lot to be sold. Happy to answer any questions on that. Did want to also mention that 2 Washington Street, 12 Washington Street, 16 Washington, 2 Washington, of course, is the O'Shea Mansion, 12 is the St. Paul's Church, and 16 is the Rectory. There's been some interest. We've had 2 site visits the last couple of weeks, which was very encouraging. And at some point, hopefully in the very near future, I would like to put those out for sale in some capacity. I don't know yet which direction we're going to go, but I'm very encouraged that there's been some interest. There hadn't been much interest for a little while there. I've put the property out twice, haven't generated any bids, which has been frustrating because it seems like there was a great deal of interest, and I've gotten excited and thought about some real potential there, but it hasn't turned out the way we want. But I'm getting close to thinking that there could be something that could happen at those sites. So that's still a work in progress as to that property, but in general terms, I feel that a market is developing and there might be something that could really fit in with what we want overall, but still work to be determined. There were a number of sites, single-family lots, that we just didn't feel comfortable with at that time for a number of reasons. We didn't feel that the neighborhood should be interrupted at this point. We were uncertain if it was just the right thing for that particular area. And there are really sites across the city. Ward 1, Ward 4, Ward 6, Ward 5. But this is the one that I thought we could move forward on and see where the market is and if this is something that we should look at for other sites in the future. Happy to answer any questions again, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman. But those are really the only updates that I really have much information on at this time, but happy to answer any questions about other ones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through President Rosignol, if you could please identify whether you'd like to speak or not. It's open to any member of the committee and fellow councilors, please.
Councilor Melville.
Thank you very much. Through the chair to the mayor. So I understand the process of you can authorize the auction, and it comes back. I'm assuming there's not a set. Is there a set number that you're looking to hit? I mean, obviously that could be part of the auction process, but is it the proposal that would have you pull back, or is it the amount that you could sell the property for? You had mentioned that we could pull back. What would cause you to do that? Either or?
We have authority at any point to pull back, and it would be based solely at this point on what the bid would be in terms of if it's a small amount of money that I don't think it's worth moving forward, then we as a community have the ability to pull back. At the auction, somebody would be awarded the property, but then it would come back to us to go ahead and sign a purchase and sale agreement only if we're comfortable with where we're at. Purchase and sale agreement, again, would have to come to all of you to authorize me to sign it. There would be a due diligence period that the buyer would have the opportunity to do their due diligence to satisfy any bank terms that they may be working with a lender on. We did go ahead and get planning board approval. It wasn't a vote that was required because it fit in with the zoning for the R1 zone in this neighborhood, but we did present it to the planning board just for informational purposes only. But that's really what it'd be, Councilor Melville, is just really a determination. Does this fit in terms of the finances? Does this fit with what we're looking for?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess, I know this will have to come before us again, but I said this before when we talked about the properties. A big part of however this is presented is I'd like to know, what the plan is with the proceeds. Is it going to go into the general fund to just fund the operation, daily operation? Is it going to go back into capital, into maintaining other buildings or properties, or what? I'd like to know that when is part of my decision making when it comes to this, because I think that there, and I don't oppose any sort of sale of property if it's in the best, especially if it's not going to interrupt the neighborhood. I'm sure we will hear from neighbors as well based on this, so I'll definitely take that into consideration. But thank you for the information tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And in terms of the funding, where this would go is it would go into, and you had brought this up, which was an excellent point at the September 10th meeting when I had watched the hearing again. You had brought this up, which was a very important point. How it would work, it would go anything in terms of the sale or purchase of property, everything goes into an account for city-owned sale or purchase of property. Then from there, we do have the ability under a certain limited criteria to utilize that money for different aspects of governing. We could use it for debt service, which would be helpful with the budget, but we can't just take that money and put it to the police department or something like that. It's only a narrow window, but it would be allowed to be used for certain items that are in our budget that may help, this year, next year, years to come. Certainly, I do think we always have to be very creative in trying to find sources of revenue, and that's what this is all about. And I do believe, from what I'm hearing and the amount of calls that we've gotten, I'm optimistic that we will get a very fair price that will be very helpful to us in our finances moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Melville. Council President Rosignol, please.
Councilor Charest.
Thank you, Chairman and President. To the Mayor, it's kind of on the same lines of Mr. Melville was going. I know when you said, you know, your authority to put it out to an auction, but then that needs to come back to the council for the approval. It's a little, to me, it sounds a little ass backwards that, you know, you could actually have the sale, but then come back to the council, look for the support to be able to sell it. And it seems kind of being in limbo for how long would that time frame be for us? And, you know, so this isn't an absolute auction, correct? You mentioned that earlier, that the city has any reason to pull back if it didn't fetch the amount of dollars that we're looking for, or any circumstances. Am I correct?
This is an auction with conditions, meaning before we could move forward with any sale, it's conditioned upon the fact that it needs city council approval. So, yeah, absolutely, we have the ability to pull back before it even goes to the council, or if we are moving forward, we present it to the council. But I think it falls in line with what, you know, our city charter is, where I propose as mayor, city council disposes of these questions. So, like we've done in numerous times where we've purchased and sold property, I put it out, present it to you, and then you make your decisions.
Okay, because for some reason or other, I'm going back to, this is different than surplus property then, I guess, right? That it has to be deemed surplus, come to the city for us to authorize a sale. Is an auction different than a sale?
Is an auction different than a sale? No, this is exactly what we've done in terms of the properties when we put it out for to Washington Street, when we purchased 10 Lowell Street, when we purchased 16 Lowell Street, when we purchased the Clark Barrow building on Collar Street. These are ones that I move forward, negotiate a sale number and terms, and then bring it to you for your vote. But that's how it's always been handled.
Sure, and I don't want to have you, an opinion thinking I'm not for moving this forward. It just seems to me that I'd be hesitant, I guess, if I was going to be a bidder to say, well, the city council gets the final say on it. If, you know, I'm sure it's going to do well. I just don't understand that process and stuff. And again, on the money that comes in, I'm glad it's going not into the general fund, but certainly in a fund that will certainly maybe help us to achieve affordable housing or other housing for veterans or anyone in need here in the city. So I'd be happy to see that go into the fund that's you know, identified for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sharist. Councilor Rossignol, please.
Councilor Welton.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the mayor. Just out of curiosity, if a bidder was interested in purchasing 2 lots, I know it's zoned R1, and making one contiguous buildable lot, is that something that is being considered at this time, or we're going to wait to see how that shakes out with the auction?
Yes, in the auction language, that is a possibility where someone could buy both lots just to build one home. It's a single-family lot, so it has to be a single-family home. But certainly if they wanted a big yard, as long as they meet the requirements of the R1 zone in terms of height restrictions and rear setbacks and side setbacks and front, if all of those are met, it's conceivable that somebody could buy it and build one home there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rossignol, please.
Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through the chair, I'd like just to kind of mention some comments. Obviously, Bow Street is located in Ward 6, and familiar with the property. I live right around the corner on Antrim Road, and the parcel has been unused for many years. In general, I've certainly spoken with the mayor about it, and was glad they were able to have the proposed buffer surrounding the 2 parcels, which I think is important because of it being a wooded area at this point in time. That particular end of Bow Street, as the mayor said, it is one way. Those parcels are larger. I do think at this point those parcels will fit in with the character of the neighborhood. General comments, we did look at a couple of other sites that were mentioned at the September building in terms of, possible sales. I felt this one works, but I want to be clear, I'm not in favor of just selling off, this is just for Ward 6, I'm not in favor of selling off parcels unless it makes sense for the city. But of course, the city, that means the taxpayers in the neighborhood. So this particular instance, I know that there's still some unanswered information. The auction happens. We want to make sure that we get a price for this. I don't want to give, not that the city is intending that, we've got to make sure that this makes sense for us and not for the developer or whoever goes and buys it. So I think certainly, however the auction goes and the city doesn't pull out, we get, good pricing for both parcels, then I think, the council will probably look favorable, and I can't speak for anyone else, but certainly we do not want to give those away, and I know the city will be willing to say, we're not giving them away for nothing. The land is valuable there, and we should treat it as such. So, like I said, just general comments. It is difficult right now, as anyone who's familiar with that street, it's a wooded area. It has been. It's not a full, full growth, area. It's just kind of spotted where the actual PMLP substation was. It's just kind of gravel, and so it's there. I think it'll make sense for this particular spot, but it certainly has its challenges. Those neighbors have had, just a patch of woods there, and it's, I think it makes sense. Let's see what happens with the auction. We get the right price. I don't know if we probably don't want to talk about it in public if someone's trying to bid on the product, but is there a price that we have for both lots that we say if we don't get X, we're walking away? Do we happen to know that? Through the chair, I'd like to ask the mayor that. If we have a minimum bid for each one that we'd say, this is great, go up, or we walk away. Thank you.
I didn't put a specific number in the auction documents or anything. I didn't give a specific number. One thing I did want to mention, though, too, Mr. O'Neill, that you had touched on the question to me earlier. To tie into our water and sewer, that would be purely on the buyer of the two lots. That is not something that we, as a city, would be paying for. They have to tie in on their own. Their connections would be around the corner on Herrick, and that would have to be done by the buyer. Sorry, I just want to make sure that was in there.
Thank you. Just, I guess the question, certainly I know we wouldn't want to put that in the document. This is the least amount we want to take, but do we have the answer that, we have as our walk away for each lot that, we have in our mind, that we say we want, I'm making this up, $300,000 for each one. If we don't get that, we're walking away. Thank you.
Yes, we do. I just don't want to say it.
Understood. I just want to make sure that we've got that, it fits with the land value, and we've got some sort of appraisal that says this is what open space should be at this point in time, given the desirability of Peabody and open space in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Neill. President Rossignol, please.
Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mayor Bettencourt. I wasn't on the council at the time, but I believe Mayor Bonfanti may have broached this idea of that lot as well for a sale. And I think that there was neighborhood opposition, and there might have been environmental or conservation commission issues. I'm not quite sure. So I just wanted to know, and then for whatever reason, he didn't go forward with it. So you had mentioned that neighbors have contacted you in favor or with questions, and there doesn't seem to be much opposition, but I'm wondering if, and I haven't heard any opposition, I haven't been contacted by any neighbors about this Bow Street auction, but I'm wondering, has the neighborhood been notified, all the abutters been notified, and if there were environmental issues in the past, have they been addressed, or will it be something that the buyer will be responsible for, given that it was a substation, and was there, I don't know if it was water issues or wetland issues, or I don't know what the issues were. I know you were on the council at the time, you may remember, or, but if you could just touch upon those questions for me, thank you.
Yes, all good questions. So, yeah, I do recall, and I think it was very early, I think it was my first term or second term, that was brought forward by Mayor Bonfanti. I did give him a call. He relayed to me some information about why that was ultimately pulled back, and I was very comfortable that those decisions didn't impact conservation, environmental, title, any of that type of stuff. We did, when the property was transferred to us in 2007 from PMLP, there was a full environmental report that was performed. And again, I feel very confident we did our appropriate due diligence and are moving forward with a clean site. And I don't want to give the impression that I talked to a number of neighbors. I did send letters to all of them, asking them to contact me. A number of people did. And there were some real good questions, legitimate questions. And I know the buffer appeased or satisfied some people. But I was curious to see if there have been calls or anything. But I do think this is a good site to sell.
Thank you. And when you said you sent letters out to neighbors, would they identify the abutters that you contacted?
Yes, we got on a butters list and sent it to those residents of Bradford Road, Herrick, and Bow Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Manning. Councilor Rossignol, please.
Councilor Charest.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, I just missed this question through you to the mayor. With this auction, is there any deed restrictions on this property, such as if you decide to sell it as a one parcel, that it remains as one parcel and not able to be split up by a developer later on, or anything like that? I realize that it'd probably be purchased by a developer, and someone's going to develop if one or two parcels and build a house and sell it. But I just don't want to see this being a flip, a quick sale, as a land only for somebody who's make a quick buck and then leave. We're looking to, create a neighborhood atmosphere here. So is there any deed restrictions on it, such as that? Thank you.
We haven't got to the point of doing preparing the deed. When we do, those will come up. I think that's a good question. And we'll have that discussion once we get to the point of the purchase and sale agreement. But we haven't taken that step, other than it has to fit in with the zoning under our zoning ordinances, that it's a R1 zone. And there's all the restrictions in terms of height and yard setbacks and such.
Thank you, Councilor Charest. Any further questions, Councilor Charest?
No.
Thank you. President Rossignol, Councilor Sasslaw would like to speak if he's in line.
Councilor Sasslaw.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Council Chairman, President. Just had a couple of quick questions. I think we're in a good shape because, as the mayor knows, and I think we all know, we are white hot in Peabody. So I was going to ask about the minimum. I understand you know it internally, but I think we'll probably hit it because we're so white hot in this circumstance. The other question I had was as far as the deposit that's due that day, Mayor, for anyone who registers. I assume that's a non-refundable deposit if they can't get financing, and then the backup bidder would be next. Is that correct in my assumption?
Yes, you are correct. It is non-refundable.
Okay, great. And also, when you do come before the council, is that a simple majority vote or a super majority vote?
That is a majority vote.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And I think the other councils covered a lot of my questions as far as the neighbors and things of that nature. Just curious, is there any other property? Because I did go back and watch the meeting, because when I heard about this property, we had a pretty extensive meeting, and this property wasn't brought up at all. So as you can understand, we don't want to do our due diligence. Is there any other properties? I was just kind of perplexed why this property, all of a sudden, we had a meeting, it wasn't discussed at all. And then I heard about it, and we're here. And I actually haven't taken a drive by. I will, obviously, try and attend the auction. But I'm just curious, is there any other particular properties that you're looking at that wasn't discussed that night that are, in the same scenario that we're looking at tonight?
Yes, it was not discussed at the September 10th meeting. When we were doing our tours of the area and got our full list of what the city-owned property was, this one just jumped out at me as as something that could really work. And I did want to take advantage of our high the strong sales we're doing in Peabody. Really tried to see if we could do it before the winter months, and maybe the market goes down depending. But we are, as you said, we are white hot right now, and I definitely did want to take advantage of that. So I did move forward with this particular site. Yes, there were other sites we looked at too that were certainly not on that list of 10 or 12 that we got into a real discussion about. There was some parkland that's been used in the past. Some of it is city-owned, some of it is parkland restricted. And I just, getting input from other people, I just didn't feel that those were the right thing to do for those neighborhoods at this point in time. I thought this one would not be intrusive on the neighborhood like maybe some of those other sites would be. So that's why I felt comfortable with this one, just to gauge where we're at and see if this is something that can work for us. And then we can have discussions in the future maybe about other sites.
Sure, thank you, I understand. And lastly, you had mentioned up a couple other properties on Washington Street. It would behoove me if I didn't bring it up while we have you, and you made it clear that you are open for discussions. I have to ask about the Brody's building because, as you know, that's the one that we're probably asked about quite frequently, and we're going into recess here for another 30 days. So shame on me if I didn't ask.
No, I'm glad you did. I don't have really much information at this point. I do think that that's one we as a group need to look at pretty serious because it's it's been lingering and hanging around for a while, and there's been some positive things that have happened there, some other negative things, and that's what I'm hoping to make a decision on in the very near future. I think if we maybe have another meeting in January or February, I think I can have a lot more, maybe give more updates on where we stand with that. But there really hasn't been much movement lately on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Sasla. Are there any more councilors like to ask the mayor any questions?
I just have one. Most of my questions have been asked and answered. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor. You mentioned that you're going to have pre-registered auctioneers. Are they already pre-registered? And do you have a list of them, and how many pre-registered people are you planning on having there?
Yeah, we're gonna have it wide open. That's I think the beauty of this is that it will be wide open, transparent, and everybody will have an opportunity to see what's taking place. There have been a number of people who've called. We've just always directed them to the Zakos group. And I know Dan Doucette has received a number of calls. He's done the very same thing. I know people are reaching out. I don't know if they've been able to register yet, but I know there will be plenty of time leading up to that. But yeah, you cannot bid on the property if you don't register and have a certified $20,000 deposit for each lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mayor, thank you very much for the information tonight. It was very enlightening. Thank you. If there's no further questions, I'll take a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Heard the motion by Councilor McGinn. Roll call, please.
Councilors Charis,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
we are adjourned.
2-minute recess till we start the regular meeting. Thank you.